Dear Professor Dr. Mijna Hadders-Algra, I'm very pleased to have the possibility to ask you, as one of the developers of COPCA, questions about this early intervention program. Could you tell us, what does COPCA mean?
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to tell about COPCA. COPCA is a family-centered intervention program for infants with special needs. That is, for infants with an increased risk for or with a neurodevelopmental disorder. COPCA is the abbreviation of Coping with and Caring for Infants with Special Needs, a family-centered program.
Thank you very much for this interesting explanation. I'm interested in what are the goals of COPCA?
Thank you. COPCA's name already indicates that COPCA has two aims and two components that highly interact. COPCA is a family-centered program, and accordingly, its first component is the family. It stresses the pivotal role of the family in early intervention. It's the family who has to cope with the situation of the child with special needs, usually a long-lasting situation. And we realize that each family has its own priorities in life, priorities for what they think that's important. And also that each family has its own habits, its own rituals and routines. Hence, family autonomy is a key feature of COPCA. And therefore, the health professional in COPCA does not act as a therapist who instructs the family and who performs activities with the child. No, in COPCA, the health professional acts as a coach who guides and informs the family how they, in their own way, can optimize infant development. The second component is the neurodevelopmental component, as COPCA is a program for infants at high risk of or with a neurodevelopmental disorder. And in the neurosciences, we gradually understood that spontaneous activity is a quintessential characteristic of the brain, and that the brain especially learns from its own exploration and its own trial and error activities. Translated to early intervention, this means that the infant will not profit very much from activities that a therapist is performing with him or her, but that the infant will learn and develop, especially when it is challenged to perform its own actions, and that the infant is allowed to explore with trial and error. Coaching of the families by the health professional especially means that families are coached in how they, during daily caregiving activities, can playfully integrate explorative and challenging activities for the infant.
Thank you very much for this interesting information. Can you explain us what is the evidence that COPCA has a positive effect?
Thank you. Up till now, 3 RCTs, randomized control trials, have been performed, 2 in the Netherlands and 1 in Switzerland. And in each RCT, we compared the effect of COPCA with that of what we called typical infant physiotherapy. And in both countries, typical infant physiotherapy consists of a mix of NDT and what has been called functional physiotherapy. The first thing that we learned during the studies is that it is very hard to do RCTs in early physiotherapeutic intervention, as it is very heterogeneous what physiotherapists do during the intervention. And we realized that from the very beginning, and therefore we had made in all 3 trials, in all infants, multiple video recordings of intervention sessions, so we knew what the therapist had been doing during the intervention. In only one of the 3 studies, we found on the RCT level evidence that the COPCA group had a better outcome than the control group. The COPCA infants had a better motor development. In the other 2 studies, developmental outcome in both groups was similar. But, as just mentioned, we had realized beforehand that it would be difficult to find differences between the groups at the RCT level. Therefore, the in-depth analysis of what the therapist had been doing during the intervention was carried out. And then we found consistently that the COPCA approach was associated on the one hand side with a better family outcome, that is, with better family well-being and a better family empowerment, and on the other hand, with a better infant motor development. And key elements in these effects were the coaching of the families and the challenging of the infant to act by itself and to perform trial and error activities.
Thank you very much for this interview, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure to share the information.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.